The Mastermind. Imagine a villain who's always several steps ahead, as if playing multi-dimensional chess, where every move is part of a grand plan. This is the Mastermind, a master of the mind whose weapons are intellect, control, and impeccable strategy. Consider Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds. In the interrogation scene, he sits calmly, a smile on his face, but his eyes are calculating every lie, every weakness of his interlocutor. He doesn't need violence right away. He values manipulating the situation, anticipating reactions, and constructing traps that spring at the most unexpected moment. Such villains are often cold-blooded analysts who see the world as a system of vulnerabilities, and their plans unfold layer by layer, leaving the heroes feeling like pawns. Consider John Doe from C7. This serial killer doesn't just kill, he creates a series of crimes based on the 7 deadly sins, where each murder is a step in his moral travesty, carefully planned to shock society and prove his case. Or Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad, who under the guise of a fast food chain owner, builds a drug empire. He's always calm, calculates risks, and uses double agents and economics to dominate. Why are such villains so effective in film? They build tension through intellectual duels, keeping the audience guessing. What if this plan works? Without masterminds, films would lose depth of intrigue, as they evolve from a simple conflict to a complex web of conspiracies where the hero must become smarter to win. The brute force. Now let's move on to the complete opposite of intelligence. The brute force. A villain who relies on sheer physical prowess, instincts, and relentless dominance. This is the type where force is everything, and thought is minimal. They simply smash through obstacles, sowing fear with their very appearance. A classic example is Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. His massive masked figure, his voice echoing in the hall, and the scene where he breaks Batman's back emphasize that for him, the world is an arena where the strongest survive. Bane doesn't plan. He uses brute force to break not only the bodies, but also the spirits of his opponents, symbolizing primal chaos. Such villains are often unstoppable machines, driven by base instincts, vengeance, survival, or programming. Think of the Terminator from the first film, The Terminator. This cyborg smashes through walls, bullets, and explosions, emotionless, focused only on the goal of destruction, making him the perfect embodiment of mechanical brute force. Or Jason Voorhees, from the Friday the 13th series, a silent giant in a hockey mask who stalks his victims with inhuman endurance, ignoring pain and logic. Imagine this type of villain as that guy at the gym who never thinks about strategy, just smashing walls with his fists because he can. But behind the humor lies depth. Such characters inject adrenaline into action scenes, forcing heroes to rely not on strength but on cunning and speed to overcome physical superiority. In cinema, brute force is often contrasted with vulnerable heroes, emphasizing themes of strength versus intelligence. Without them, films would lack visceral tension, as they evoke real fears of uncontrollable power. The tragic villain. Next, we delve into a more emotional type, the tragic villain. A villain whose story evokes not only revulsion, but also deep empathy, because they are good, twisted by life and turned into evil. Internal pain, loss, and injustice make their fall relatable, forcing us to reflect on the fragility of human nature. A perfect example is Darth Vader from Star Wars, especially the scene with Luke in Death Star. Beneath the black mask lies Anakin Skywalker, a father torn by the conflict between darkness and light, the result of manipulation, love, and fear. He is not inherently evil. He is a tragedy of choice, where one wrong step leads to a chain reaction of destruction. Such villains often have a backstory full of trauma, betrayals, loss of loved ones, or social injustices that push them down a dark path. Consider Eric Killmonger from Black Panther. His rage is rooted in colonialism, racism, and the loss of his father, making his motivations clear. He wants justice for the oppressed, but his methods are brutal and radical. Or Green Goblin from Spider-Man, where Norman Osborn, a successful scientist, is driven mad by a serum while fighting an alter ego, reflecting an internal struggle with madness. Imagine how one twist of fate could have made them heroes, rather than monsters. In film, such characters add depth, exploring themes of redemption, morality, and empathy, forcing viewers to reflect on their own foibles. Without tragic villains, films would be flat, as they transform conflict into a personal drama where the hero's victory is often bittersweet. The Charismatic Manipulator. We move on to one of the most captivating types, the Charismatic Manipulator, a villain who uses charisma, unpredictability, and psychological games to win hearts and minds, making evil seem appealing. He's a master of deception whose charm disguises danger, turning victims into accomplices. A classic example is Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. His chaotic laughter, scars, and quotes like "Why so serious?" hypnotize viewers on screen, making them laugh at his madness. He doesn't just destroy, he manipulates society, sowing doubt in morality, playing on fears and desires to create chaos. Such villains are often eccentric showmen, using verbal magic to upend reality. Consider Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs, an elegant cannibal psychiatrist whose conversations with Clarice reveal her traumas, making him both an ally and a threat, with a focus on intellectual dominance. Or Loki from the Marvel Universe, the god of lies, whose charisma and wit make him a fan favorite, despite his endless betrayals and delusions. They win battles not with their fists, but by persuasion, making heroes doubt themselves. Why are such villains so popular? They add layers to the psychological thriller, exploring themes of manipulation and charisma in real life, as in politics or relationships. Without charismatic manipulators, cinema would lose its charm, as they turn the antagonist into a star, making us love to hate them. The corrupted hero. Now let's consider the corrupted hero. A villain who begins as a protagonist, but gradually loses control, falling into the abyss due to ambition or circumstance. This is a story of transformation, where good intentions are corrupted by power, revealing the dark side of human nature. An example is Walter White from Breaking Bad, especially the "I am the one who knocks" scene. From a humble chemistry teacher battling cancer, he evolves into the drug lord Heisenberg, justifying his crimes with caring for his family, but in reality losing his humanity. Such villains evolve over the course of the plot, beginning with relatable motives, protecting loved ones, justice, but descending into selfishness and cruelty. Harvey Dent from The Dark Knight, whose acid-scarred face symbolizes the internal turmoil from idealist to Two-Face, or Anakin Skywalker, who becomes Darth Vader out of fear of losing Padme. These characters resonate with audiences because they reflect real-life weaknesses, how power changes people, how one compromise leads to another. In film, they often become the center of character arcs, exploring themes of moral decline and redemption, forcing viewers to ask, could I have resisted? Without corrupted heroes, films would be static. They add dynamism, turning the story into a warning about the price of ambition. The system villain. Next up is the system villain, an evil without a face, where the antagonist is an entire structure, a corporation, government, or technology that suppresses the individual for the sake of the greater good or profit. This type is terrifying in its impersonality. It cannot be killed with a single blow. It is everywhere and nowhere. A classic example is Agent Smith from The Matrix. He is the embodiment of the Matrix, replicating like a virus, fighting free will, symbolizing the system's control over humanity. Such villains are often abstract, but their influence is felt through bureaucracy, rules, and machines that sacrifice people. Consider the Weyland-Yutani Corporation from Alien. They send a crew to their deaths to study xenomorphs, putting profit above lives, reflecting capitalist evil. Or HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey, an AI who protects the mission by killing the astronauts, highlighting the dangers of artificial intelligence. Why are such villains relevant? They comment on the real world, corporate corruption, totalitarian regimes, the ethical issues of AI, forcing viewers to reflect on systemic injustices. In films, they add satire and dystopia, where the hero fights not against a human being, but against the machine of society. Without institutional villains, the chaotic evil. We move on to the chaotic evil, a villain who destroys for the sake of pure chaos, without logic or purpose, driven by narcissism and a desire to sow chaos. He is the embodiment of mindless evil, terrifying in its unpredictability. Take Patrick Bateman from American Psycho in the business card scene. His obsession with the superficial business cards, music, appearance, masks of emptiness of soul, leading to random, remorseless murder. Such villains are often sociopaths, enjoying destruction as an art, without a moral compass. Consider Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. His coin decides destinies, and his murders are a game of chance, highlighting the absurdity of life. Or the Joker, who just wants to watch the world burn. The irony is that his chaos seems senseless, but in fact it exposes the hypocrisy of society. These villains are like children with dynamite. Their logic is absurd, but that's precisely what makes them terrifying, because they're impossible to predict. In film, they add tension through unpredictability, forcing the characters to improvise and exploring themes of nihilism and madness. Without chaotic evil, films would lose their edge, becoming predictable. The monster villain. Now, the monster villain is the embodiment of pure horror, ancient fears, and the absence of human logic, where evil is the instinct of a predator or supernatural being. This type evokes visceral fear, reminding us of fragility in the face of the unknown. An example is Pennywise from It, a demonic clown feeding on childhood fears, shapeshifting to exploit weaknesses, symbolizing trauma and the subconscious. Such villains are often inhuman, beasts, aliens, or monsters driven by hunger or instinct, without dialogue or motivation. Consider the xenomorph from Alien, the perfect parasite, evolved for killing, with acidic blood and stealth, emphasizing the themes of isolation in space, or the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, a force of nature rebelling against man, demonstrating the hubris of science. Why do such villains work? They tap into primal fears, darkness, the unknown, injecting suspense into horror and sci-fi. Without monster villains, cinema would lose its primal terror, becoming too rational. The ideological villain. Next up is the ideological villain, a villain with a mission, sincerely believing in their own righteousness, where evil is justified by a higher purpose. This type of villain makes one question morality, sounds logical, but leads to disaster. An example is Thanos from Avengers Infinity War, with the phrase perfectly balanced as all things should be. He sacrifices half the universe for the sake of balancing resources, motivated by his own famine, making him a sympathetic antagonist. Such villains are often fanatics, ecologists, reformers, or conquerors whose ideas are radical. Consider Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins. He wants to purge Gotham of corruption through destruction, believing in cycles of rebirth. Or Omni-Man from Invincible, a superhero who conceals his conquest of Earth under the guise of protection. These villains are compelling, forcing the heroes and the audience to question their own beliefs. In films, they add philosophical depth, exploring themes of extremism and ethics. Without ideological villains, films would lose their debate, becoming black and white. The hidden villain. Now, for one of the most intriguing types, the hidden villain, where evil is hidden within the hero, like an alter ego or repressed trauma, corroding the mind and blurring the line between reality and madness. These are antagonists of internal conflict, where the worst enemy is oneself, and the battle takes place within the psyche, forcing the audience to look into their fears. A classic example is Tyler Durden from Fight Club in the finale. He is a projection of the hero's nihilism, rebelling against conformity through chaos and mayhem, ruining the protagonist's life. Such villains are common in thrillers, embodying schizophrenia or deception. Consider Norman Bates from Psycho. His mother is a split personality, born of trauma, leading to murder. Or Amy Dunn from Gone Girl, a manipulator who fakes her disappearance to frame her husband, playing on psychology and the media. Why do they work? They explore mental health and the subconscious, forcing us to consider our inner demons. Conclusion: sometimes evil is as obvious as a punch in the face. Sometimes it's hidden deep within the soul or the system, but without it, there would be no real cinema. It makes heroes grow, plots unfold, and us, the viewers, reflect on good and evil in real life. Cinema reminds us of the endless variety of antagonists, each adding a unique flavor. What's your favorite type of villain? Share in the comments, and don't forget to like if the video made you rethink your favorite films.